The building stood silent, a monolith against the moonlit sky. Kavran and his team, cloaked in shadows, moved like phantoms. Every sense was on high alert. The air itself felt heavy, pregnant with danger. They crept closer, adrenaline pumping in their veins. Each footstep was a calculated risk. One wrong move could spell disaster. The fate of countless lives rested on their shoulders. Failure was not an option. Reaching a side entrance, Kavran signaled to his team. They fanned out, covering all angles. He picked the lock with practiced ease. The door creaked open, a sound that seemed deafening in the stillness. They were in. The interior was dark and musty. Dust motes danced in the faint beams of moonlight, filtering through cracks in the walls. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the team's own breathing. They moved deeper into the building, their eyes adjusting to the gloom. A sudden sound, a floorboard creaking under a heavy boot. Kavran reacted instantly, signaling his team to halt. They froze, every muscle tense, weapons ready. Two figures emerged from the shadows, guards, armed and alert, a quick silent struggle. The element of surprise was their only advantage. Kavran disarmed one guard with a swift, brutal move. The other fell silent, a blade glinting between his ribs. The team moved on, their objective drawing nearer. They reached a heavy steel door. This had to be it. Kavran could feel it. He nodded to his team member, a specialist in breaching. The air filled with the whine of a cutting torch. Sparks flew, illuminating the grim determination on their faces. The door swung open, revealing a large, dimly lit room. And in the center, surrounded by armed men, stood Rohan. Their eyes met across the room. A cold fury burned in Rohan's gaze.
You dare intrude on my sanctuary?
Chaos erupted. Gunfire filled the air. The room a whirlwind of movement and violence. Kavran's team fought with the precision of seasoned warriors, taking down enemy after enemy. But Rohan's men were no pushovers. The air grew thick with the smell of gunpowder and blood. Kavran fought his way through the melee, his eyes fixed on Rohan. He had to stop him. He reached the center of the room, dodging a blow that would have cleaved him in two. Their blades met, sparking in the dim light. Kavran, you're finished, Rohan. Your reign of terror ends tonight.
Foolish mortal. You think you can stop what's already in motion?
He gestured towards a massive map on the wall, covered in intricate details and markings. Kavran's blood ran cold. It wasn't just a hideout, it was a command center. The map detailed a terrifying plan, one that threatened to throw the world into chaos. This was bigger than he could have imagined.
Surprised? Let me show you what true pain looks like.
Rohan saw the look on Kavran's face and smiled cruelly. His voice was dripping with venom as he launched into a furious attack, his movements fueled by a lifetime of anger and resentment. Kavran fought back, parrying each blow with difficulty. He could sense the rage consuming Rohan, the pain that drove him. It was then that he noticed a small faded tattoo on Rohan's arm, the symbol of a long-forgotten village, a village Rohan had once called home. Suddenly it all clicked. Kavran had heard whispers of this village, a place wiped out by a ruthless military offensive years ago, an offensive orchestrated by the very organization Kavran now served. Rohan wasn't just a madman, he was a victim seeking revenge.
You're too late, Kavran. This entire facility is rigged to self-destruct. You'll die here along with your precious ideals.
Their fight was interrupted by a deep rumbling sound. The ground shook beneath their feet. The room began to collapse, dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. A trap! Rohan shouted over the din, a triumphant gleam in his eye. He turned and sprinted towards a hidden passage, disappearing into the shadows. Panic threatened to overwhelm them. The room was coming down around them, escape routes blocked. They were trapped. Kavran knew they had to act fast, but what could they do? They were sitting ducks. The air grew thick with dust, making it difficult to breathe. The ground shuddered violently, threatening to swallow them whole. Kavran looked at his team, their faces pale with fear. He knew he couldn't give in to despair. Not now, not when so much was at stake. Kavran, we need to move. There has to be another way out, he roared, his voice barely audible above the chaos. He scanned their surroundings, desperately searching for an escape route. But the walls were closing in, and time was running out. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him. He had led his team into this hellhole, and now their lives were in his hands. He had to make a choice, and he had to make it fast. One wrong move could mean their doom. Section 8. The Weight of Choice, Kavran's Dilemma. Two conflicting impulses warred within Kavran. Should he pursue Rohan and try to stop his catastrophic plan, or focus on getting his team to safety, even if it meant letting a monster escape. His gut screamed at him to go after Rohan, bring him to justice, but the lives of his team, his friends, weighed heavily on his conscience. He looked into their eyes, saw the fear mirrored there, but also the unwavering trust they placed in him. He couldn't let them down, not after everything they'd been through together. Their safety had to come first. "We're pulling out," he yelled, his voice firm despite the turmoil within. "We need to regroup and find another way to stop Rohan. We can't save the world if we're dead." His words, though born of necessity, felt like a bitter pill to swallow. Section 9, A Glimmer of Hope, the Escape Plan. One of his team, a demolitions expert, pointed to a section of wall that seemed weaker than the others.
"If we can blow that section, it might create an opening big enough to escape through,"
he shouted, his voice hoarse. Kavran nodded, hope flickering in his chest. It was a long shot, but it was their only shot. "Kavran, do it," he commanded, his voice filled with urgency. The demolitions expert went to work, his movements swift and precise. The fate of the team rested on his shoulders. The air crackled with tension as they waited, each tick of the clock a hammer blow to their nerves. Finally, the explosives were in place.
"Fire in the hole!"
The demolitions expert yelled, scrambling back to safety. A deafening roar ripped through the collapsing structure. Section 10. Into the Fire, a daring rescue. The blast threw Kavran and his team back, sending them sprawling across the floor. Dust and debris filled the air, choking them, blinding them. For a moment, everything went silent. Then through the haze, Kavran saw it. A gaping hole in the wall leading out into the night. "Kavran, go, go, go!" he screamed, scrambling to his feet and urging his team towards the opening. They didn't hesitate, racing towards the light, their escape illuminated by the flames of the collapsing building. They emerged into the cool night air, gasping for breath, their bodies battered and bruised but alive. They had escaped the inferno, but their mission was far from over. Rohan was still out there and his deadly plan was in motion. Section 11, Dawn's Uncertain Light, to be continued. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a blood-red glow over the smoldering ruins of the hideout, Kavran and his team regrouped. They had survived the night, but at a cost. Their enemy was still at large, and the threat he posed was greater than ever. They had looked into the abyss and lived to tell the tale, but the experience had changed them. They had stared death in the face and emerged with a newfound determination. Rohan would pay for what he had done. The fight was far from over. It had just begun.